Hey everyone, my name is Nigel Bajos, and today I'm going to give you guys 5 things that you should buy after you've got your camera body. So since it's the sale weekend right now, being Black Friday and Cyber Monday, I just thought I'd give you guys some ideas for gear to look for if you're a new filmmaker, or maybe if you just don't have these pieces of gear yet. I think that they are very essential when you are just starting out, or if you just don't have them. When I first started out in filmmaking, I was really obsessed with getting all these rigs and sliders and gimbals and all this kind of stuff. But actually, I think that these 5 things are much more important than any rigs or cages or steady cams or anything like that. So since there's a lot of different filmmakers out there with different cameras, I'm not really going to cater this to one specific camera brand, but I'm going to try to give a overall idea of what you should have. A lot of these pieces of gear can be applied to different cameras, but I am going to try to tailor it to each different camera in the description below. So I'll have Amazon links in the description below to each piece of gear that I think would work best with your camera system. So the first thing that I think that you should look into after you have your camera body is getting better glass, because typically when you buy a camera, you'll get a kit lens with it that isn't usually very good. So I would suggest looking into a fast prime lens. Now, a lot of people are going to tell you to get a 50mm lens, but I think that it's more important to get a 50mm equivalent lens. I think that the best focal length to work with, in my opinion, is between 35 and 50. So if you can get a lens that gives you the equivalent focal length of like a 35 to a 50mm lens, I think that's going to be a lot of a more useful lens for you. The lens that I'm using on my Panasonic GH3 right now is the 20mm f1.7, which gives me about a 40mm equivalent focal length. And I think that the 40mm focal length is a really easy one to work with, and since it has a really nice wide aperture of f1.7, it just makes it a really versatile lens. But if you have a Canon or a Sony, I will have my suggestions for 50mm equivalent lenses in the description below. Now, the next piece of kit that I think that you should look into, even if you don't have a lot of money, this doesn't actually break the bank, is a good microphone. Having a good microphone to get better audio into your camera is essential when you're making videos. That's one thing that's typically overlooked when beginners are, making videos for YouTube, is they neglect their audio. So I think that it's really important to get a better microphone on top of your camera, or even a lav mic. I've done a couple videos on different microphones and lav mics, so you can check the cards, but I'll have my suggestions for microphones in the description below. Again, on the Panasonics and Sonys, it's not essential to have a mic that has a plus 10 or plus 20 dB gain boost, but if you have something like a Canon 80D, you're going to want to get something that's a little bit more expensive, like the Rode VideoMic Pro, that has the plus 20 dB gain boost, so you can turn down the internal preamps of your camera. So number 3 is something that I think is way more beneficial than any cages or shoulder rigs or fly cams or steady cams or anything like that. And I think that it's a really good tripod. Now, in the past, you really had to spend a lot of money to get a good tripod, but nowadays you don't have to spend a whole lot of money to get something that's really decent. I use the newer S2 video heads on a really cheap pair of sticks, and this video head and the tripod legs have lasted me for a really long time, and they actually don't break the bank. It's under $100. But again, I'm going to leave some of my suggestions for good tripods in the description below. I think that a tripod is very essential when you're starting out making videos. And when you have a really cheap tripod, you're going to see it in the footage, especially when you try to do smooth pans. And honestly, I really don't feel comfortable putting, a couple $1,000s worth of gear on top of a $20 tripod. So please stay away from the really cheap plastic $20 tripods. Those are just garbage. Invest at least $100 into a good fluid head video tripod. So number 4 is fast SD cards. Now, honestly, these used to cost a lot of money, but you can get really fast SD cards for under $20 now, and I would suggest sticking with SanDisk and just getting their Extreme Pro cards, the ones that can write at least 95 megabits per second. Those ones are just the ones that I go with every single time. And when you get really fast SD cards, like the fastest ones that you can afford, you won't have to keep on buying new ones when you upgrade to new cameras that shoot at higher bit rates. So I would just say get the fastest cards that you can afford by SanDisk, and you really can't go wrong with SanDisk. They've always proven to be really reliable, and honestly, they're really not that expensive, but they're really, really important. So that would be my number 4 thing is SanDisk SD cards. Again, they don't completely break the bank. They're not the cheapest, but I would definitely say the quality is worth the money. And I'll have links to the ones that I use in the description below. So number 5 is something that I think every filmmaker should have at least one of, and that is a good LED light. Now, there's a multitude of reviews and videos about LED lights, but honestly, I would just say try to invest as much money as you can in the brightest LED light that you can, and then just get a good light stand and a umbrella bracket and then an umbrella to diffuse your light, and you'd be surprised at how much you can get done with one really good quality light that's diffused through an umbrella. A lot of the videos that I've done on YouTube have been that exact setup, usually just that, sometimes with another smaller light, just, you know, acting as a kicker. But you don't necessarily need a LED light to, you know, film all your videos. I mean, I'm lucky enough to have a warehouse like this that I can come into and it's pretty evenly lit. But if you're doing something in really dimly lit situations, it's always good to bring an extra light with a light stand just to, you know, pop some light on you when you need it. So those would be the 5 things that I think that you should look into as a filmmaker who's just starting out, or if you've been doing it for a while but you just haven't really considered getting any of those things that I mentioned. I would definitely recommend them. I've gone through the stages of filmmaking where I just wanted to get all of this different gear, cages and rigs for my camera, but honestly, at the end of the day, the things that I use the most for my camera are the things that I've mentioned: a tripod, a good mic, lights, and a fast, sharp lens. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video. If you did, it'd be great if you hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more content. Sorry I haven't been, you know, pushing out content as much as I would like to be. I got engaged a couple weeks ago, so that's kind of been taking up a lot of my time. But I'm gonna be having more videos come out in the near future, so stay tuned for that. And until next time, I will see you all later. Bye.